If you are watching this and you are between the ages of 30 and 60, I want you to listen very carefully. We spend the first 20 years of our lives learning. We spend the next 20 years, our 20s and 30s, trying to earn. We hustle, we grind, we try to get that promotion, start that business, or build that first layer of capital. But then something happens, you hit 40. And this is where the statistics become terrifying. In my 90 years of observing human behavior and market cycles, I have noticed a pattern. It is a pattern that destroys more wealth than any recession, any bear market, or any inflation. I call it the midlife wealth filter. Most people assume that because they are earning more money in their 40s than they were in their 20s, they are getting richer. They look at their salary and it has gone up. They look at their title and it sounds impressive. But if you look at their net worth, the actual number that determines their freedom, it has often flatlined, or worse, it is quietly shrinking in real terms. Why does this happen? Why do smart doctors, lawyers, executives, and business owners who are in the top 1% of earners often end up retiring with almost nothing? It is not because they didn't pick the right stock. It is not because they didn't understand crypto. It is because at the age of 40, you enter a danger zone. You enter a zone where your habits stop building your future and start eating your past. When you are 20, and you make a financial mistake, let's say you bet your entire savings on a bad business idea and you lose it all, it is painful, but it is not fatal. You have time, you have energy, you can sleep on a friend's couch, you can hit the reset button. The mathematical lever of time is still on your side. But when you are 40 or 50, the reset button is broken. If you destroy your capital now, you do not just lose money, you lose the time required to let that money compound. You are cutting down the apple tree just as it was about to bear fruit. Charlie Munger and I have seen this happen thousands of times. We have seen men who built fortunes in their 30s completely incinerate them in their 40s. They didn't lose it because they became stupid overnight. They lost it because they fell victim to 3 specific lethal habits. These habits are invisible. They don't look like mistakes. They look like success. They look like ambition. They look like lifestyle. But they are structural cracks in your foundation. Imagine a skyscraper. In your 20s and 30s, you are pouring the concrete foundation. It is messy. It is hard work, but you are building upwards. By the time you reach 40, the building is getting tall. You have added floors. You have added weight. Now, if there is a tiny crack in the basement, a crack called ego, or crack called impatience, or crack called complacency, that crack didn't matter when the building was 1 story high. The pressure wasn't there. But now, with the weight of a mortgage, the weight of children's tuition, the weight of aging parents, and the weight of your own lifestyle, that tiny crack begins to widen. And one day, seemingly out of nowhere, the building doesn't just settle, it collapses. This is what I mean by the grade filter. The market does not care about your past success. The economy does not care that you were the smartest kid in your graduating class. The laws of mathematics do not care about your social status. If you violate the rules of capital preservation after the age of 40, the punishment is swift and often it is permanent. So in this discussion, we are going to do something uncomfortable. We are going to look in the mirror. We are not going to talk about which stock to buy next week. That is irrelevant if your bucket has a hole in it. We are going to talk about the 3 holes, the 3 psychological and behavioral habits that drain the wealth of the middle-aged high earner. If you can identify these habits and kill them today, you will find that the path to wealth is actually inevitable. It is boring, yes, but it is inevitable. But if you ignore them, if you think I make too much money to go broke, then you are exactly the person who needs to hear this the most. Let's begin with the first and perhaps the most seductive killer of them all. It is a habit that disguises itself as rewarding yourself, but in reality, it is enslaving you. This brings us to habit number 1. It is the silent killer of wealth. It is the reason why a man earning $250,000 a year can live paycheck to paycheck. I call it the lifestyle creep of the ego, or as I often refer to it, the slavery of the outer scorecard. When you hit 40, society expects certain things from you. You are a senior manager now. You are a partner in the law firm. You are a successful business owner. The world whispers to you, you've made it, you deserve it, look the part. And so the creep begins. In your 20s, you are happy driving a used Toyota. It got you from point A to point B. It was an asset of utility. But at 40, A Toyota doesn't feel right for your status. You look at your colleague, Bob. Bob just bought the new Mercedes S-Class. Bob takes his family to the Maldives, not the local beach. Suddenly your Toyota feels like a failure. Your house feels too small. Your clothes feel too cheap. So you upgrade, you buy the $80,000 car. You move into the house with the extra bedroom you don't need, which comes with double the property taxes and double the heating bill. You join the country club. You tell yourself, I can afford the monthly payments. And technically, you are right. You can make the payments, but you have missed the point entirely. Wealth is not about what you can afford in monthly installments. Wealth is about opportunity cost. Let me explain the math that most 40-year-olds ignore. Let's say you buy that luxury car for $80,000. You think the cost is $80,000. You are wrong. If you had taken that $80,000 and invested it in a decent business or index fund compounding at 10%, and you let it sit there for the next 20 years until you retire, do you know how much that money would be worth? It would be worth nearly $540,000. So that car didn't cost you $80,000 of your retirement. It cost you 5 years of freedom. Is the leather seat and the shiny logo worth 5 years of your life sitting in a cubicle when you were 60? This is the trap. At 40, you have access to credit. The banks love you. They will lend you money to hang yourself. And because your income is high, you feel safe. But you're building a life of high overhead. I have lived in the same house in Omaha since 1958. I bought it for $31, people $100. People ask me, Warren, you are a billionaire. Why don't you build a palace? Because a palace is a liability. It requires staff. It requires maintenance. It requires worry. I would rather have the money working for me than have me working for the house. The habit of lifestyle creep is insidious because it is driven by the ego. It is driven by the outer scorecard. The outer scorecard is when you measure your success by what other people think of you. Do they think I'm rich? Do they admire my car? If your self-worth depends on your net worth being visible, you will never be wealthy, because visible wealth is spent wealth. When you see someone driving a $100,000 car, the only thing you know for sure is that they have $100,000 less than they used to have, or worse, they have $100,000 of debt. At 40, you must make a brutal choice. Do you want to look rich, or do you want to be rich? You cannot do both. The wealthy people I know, the ones who stay wealthy, are under-accumulators of stuff and over-accumulators of assets. They fight asset termites. What are asset termites? They are the small, recurring expenses that eat your foundation. The subscriptions you don't use, the first-class upgrades, the expensive wine just to impress guests. Individually, they are small, but collectively, over 20 years, they eat the compounding effect alive. If you are 40, look at your expenses. How many of them are for you, and how many of them are for the audience? But how much money are you burning just to maintain an image? If you can kill the ego, if you can go back to the inner scorecard, you stop the bleeding. You realize that a car is just a car. A house is just a shelter. And suddenly you have capital again. You have the soldiers to go out and capture territory for your freedom. But if you cannot conquer this habit, if you need the applause of the crowd, then no amount of income will save you. You will be on a treadmill until the day you die. Now let's assume you have disciplined your spending, you are living below your means, you have saved some capital. This leads us to the second habit, the habit that usually strikes men in their 40s who feel like they are running out of time. It is the habit of desperation. This is habit number 2, the desperation reach. If habit number 1 is about bleeding slowly, habit number 2 is about blowing up instantly. When men reach their 40s, they often experience a specific type of financial panic. You look at your savings account and maybe you see $200,000 or $500,000. To a 20-year-old, that looks like a fortune. But to you at 40, knowing that retirement is only 20 years away, it looks terrifyingly small. You do the math in your head. You realize, if I just keep saving at this rate, I won't be rich. I'll just be comfortable. I want to be rich. This creates a dangerous psychological state. You feel behind. You feel like you are losing the race. And when a human being feels behind, they stop acting rationally. They start gambling. In the investing world, we call this reaching for yield. You are not satisfied with a safe 5% or 8% return anymore. That's too slow. You need 50%. You need 100%. You need a home run to catch up. So what do? You leave your circle of competence. You stop being the disciplined investor and you start looking for the magic bullet. You start trading options. You put 30% of your net worth into a speculative cryptocurrency because your neighbor said it's going to the moon. You buy a business you know nothing about, or worst of all, you use leverage. You borrow money to amplify your bets. Let me tell you a story about the smartest people I ever knew who went broke. In the late 90s, there was a fund called Long-Term Capital Management. These guys were geniuses. They had PhDs. They had Nobel Prize winners in economics. Their combined IQ was probably higher than any group of people ever assembled on Wall Street. They knew everything about math, but they forgot one thing about human nature. They wanted to make money faster, so they used leverage, massive leverage. And when the market moved against them, just a little bit, they were wiped out. In a matter of weeks, they lost everything. Now ask yourself, why did they do it? These men were already rich. They had tens of millions of dollars in the bank. They had reputation. They had comfort. Why did they risk everything they had and needed for money they didn't have and didn't need? This is the definition of financial insanity. If you risk what you need in order to get what you don't need, you are a fool. It doesn't matter what your IQ is. If you do that, you are foolish. But I see 40-year-olds do this every day. You have a paid-off house, you have a good job, you have a loving family, but you risk your family's security to bet on a speculative stock because you want to upgrade your lifestyle or prove you are a genius. You are playing Russian roulette. You might click the trigger 5 times and win. You might double your money, but if you keep playing, eventually you will find the bullet. And at 40, finding the bullet is fatal. If you lose 50% of your portfolio at age 45, do you know what it takes to get back to even? You need 100% return. And do you know how hard it is to get 100% return without taking massive risks? It is almost impossible. So you take more risks to make back the loss and you lose the rest. It is a death spiral. The second part of this habit is the illusion of competence. This is a specific trap for high-income professionals. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, you are very smart in your field. You spent 20 years mastering surgery or law. Because you are smart in one area, you assume you are smart in every area. You think, I'm a brilliant heart surgeon, surely I can pick stocks better than the average person. No, you can't. The stock market doesn't care about your medical degree. The market is a mechanism that punishes arrogance. When you step outside your circle of competence, you are not a shark, you are the prey. You are sitting at a poker table with people who do this 14 hours a day. If you look around the table and you can't spot the sucker is you. At 40, your goal should shift from get rich quick to get rich sure. Get rich sure is boring. It means buying high quality assets and holding them. It means accepting that you will get rich slowly. It means resisting the urge to swing at every pitch. If you feel anxiety about your wealth, the solution is not to increase your risk. The solution is to increase your savings rate or increase your skills, which we will talk about next. Do not try to solve a savings problem with an investment gamble. If you can avoid this desperation reach, if you can be content with getting rich slowly, you remove the only thing that can kill you, ruin. But even if you avoid the lifestyle creep, and even if you avoid the gambling, there is one final habit that rots the wealth of the middle-aged man. It is a habit of the mind. It is the decision to stop growing. We have arrived at the final habit, habit number 3. If the first habit destroys your savings and the second habit destroys your capital, this third habit destroys your engine. It destroys your ability to generate wealth in the first place. I call it intellectual complacency, or to put it simply, the decision to stop learning. There is a tragic phenomenon that happens to men in their 40s. They reach a certain level of competence in their careers. They become experts in their little niche. And then they put their brains on cruise control. They stop reading. They stop asking why. They rely entirely on the mental models they built in their 20s and 30s. In 1980, you could get away with this. The world moved slowly. If you learned to trade at 25, it was probably still relevant at 55. But this is 2026. The world is not moving slowly. It is moving at the speed of light. Artificial intelligence, automation, global shifts. These things are reshaping the economy every single morning. If you are 45 years old and you are operating with the same knowledge base you had at 30, you are not stable, you are obsolete, you just don't know it yet. This is a wealth killer because your human capital, your earning power, is the bond that pays the coupons of your life. If that bond gets downgraded to junk status because your skills are outdated, your cash flow dries up. And when cash flow dries up at 50, you are forced to eat your savings just to survive. That is how the nest egg dies. My partner, Charlie Munger, was the best example of the opposite of this habit. Charlie was a learning machine. He was 99 years old, and he was still reading 3 newspapers a day. He was still studying physics, biology, and psychology. He famously said, I constantly see people rise in life who are not the smartest, sometimes not even the most diligent, but they are learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. The habit of the 40-year-old poor man is the opposite. He goes to bed every night exactly as smart or perhaps a little duller than when he woke up. He comes home from work tired, and he turns on the TV, he watches sports, he scrolls social media, he numbs his mind. He thinks, I've worked hard, I don't need to study anymore, school is over. School is never over. The moment you think school is over, your decline begins. This complacency also destroys your investments. Why? Because the businesses that were great 10 years ago might be the dinosaurs of today. If you are stuck in the past, you will invest in the past. You will buy stocks that look cheap because their PE ratio is low, not realizing that they are cheap because they are dying. You become a value trap victim. You need to understand the new world. You don't have to be a coder. You don't have to be an AI engineer, but you must understand how the pieces on the chessboard are moving. A rigid mind is an expensive asset. As we age, our arteries harden, but worse, our minds harden. We become stubborn. We say things like, well, back in my day, we did it this way. The market does not care about your day. The market only cares about today and tomorrow. If you find yourself saying, I'm too old to learn that, you have just signed your financial death warrant. So how do we break this habit? It is simple, but it is hard. You must allocate capital to your brain. I don't mean money, I mean time. You must fight the urge to zone out. You must force yourself to read things that you disagree with. You must study industries that are not your own. You must have the humility to say, I don't know, and the curiosity to find out. If you are 40, you likely have another 40 years of life ahead of you. That is a second lifetime. Do you really want to navigate that second lifetime with a map that is 20 years out of date? Wealth after 40 requires a software update constantly. If you can kill the ego that buys the car, if you can kill the desperation that buys the lottery ticket, and if you can kill the complacency that stops the learning, then and only then are you ready for the final protocol. How do we put this all together into a fortress that cannot be breached? We have identified the 3 killers: the ego that spends, the desperation that gambles, and the complacency that ignores the future. Now, I want to give you the antidote. I call it the fortress protocol. If you are over 40, your goal is no longer just growth. Your goal is invincibility. You need to build a financial life that can survive a divorce, a recession, a job loss, or a health crisis. Because at 40, these are not hypothetical risks. They are probabilities. Here is the protocol. It consists of 2 simple words: define enough. The reason people fall into the lifestyle creep trap is that they have no finish line. If you don't know what enough looks like, you will always be running. Sit down today and calculate your number. Not the number to buy a private island, the number to sleep well at night. Once you have that number, you stop playing the outer scorecard game. You realize that buying a bigger boat doesn't get you closer to the number. It moves the finish line further away. Second, embrace the power of subtraction. Success usually brings complexity. You have more accounts, more subscriptions, more acquaintances, more obligations. Complexity is the enemy of execution. I want you to simplify. Cut the expenses that don't bring you joy. Cut the investments you don't understand. Cut the friends who only like you for your money. Go back to the basics. My investment strategy has not changed in 80 years. It is incredibly simple. Buy wonderful businesses at fair prices and then sit on your ass. You do not need to check the stock price every day. You do not need to react to every headline. If you have removed the leverage and you are living below your means, you have the luxury of patience. You can afford to wait. And finally, a word on time. Many of you watching this feel like it's too late. You're 45 or 50 or 55, and you feel like you missed the boat. You haven't. Compounding is backloaded. The magic happens at the end, not the beginning. Warren Buffett, I made 99% of my net worth after my 50th birthday. Read that again. 99% of the wealth came after age 50. If I had panicked at 40 because I wasn't a billionaire yet and I had gambled it all away, you would not know my name today. The first 40 years are just the warm-up. They are the years where you make your mistakes, learn your lessons, and build your character. Now you enter the second half, you have the wisdom, you have the scars, and if you follow this protocol, you will have the capital. Do not let the habits of the ego destroy what could be the most prosperous decades of your life. Kill the creep, stop the gamble, feed your mind, and I will see you at the finish line.